When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
Generalized black woman is doing this and being this. That is that is irresponsible.
No, when you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
Showing me,
black and proud. Claim your Africanness, black and proud.
Because I think that
when you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
a page,
what is the status of people who have FBA?
When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back.
That's why I was laughing, because I am
claim your Africanness.
I'm not saying the framework doesn't do a thing, but
become a part of it.
We've been
embrace
forward to black men
become a part of it.
Being in the control. We
become a part of it.
Only
embrace it.
And those to me one of the best stories I've ever heard.
Embrace it. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind
that
back.
mental growth takes place. You've been misled by leadership, for instance, that think you can consume.
When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your Africanness. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you.
Peace and power, family. Dr. Dahl back in the building, family. Special guest in the house. Well, I'm going to say a returning family member at this point, right? We talked about it. I want him to keep coming back, keep getting me in trouble. We'll talk about that a little bit later, right? You know what I mean? So none other than Dr. Ball in the house. I'll let you just speak to the people or say peace to the people, Dr. Ball. You know how to do
it. Peace. It's good to be back. Welcome. While welcome myself back. It's an honor. I appreciate it. And peace to you and your audience. And I look forward to the conversation.
I'm looking forward to it as well. So basically, yeah, family. This is one of those conversations I've been waiting for a while. An organic conversation. I want to have a talk with the good doc. You know what I mean? I want to have a good talk with the good doc, because the doc, for over years, I think he might know this, but he's been getting me in trouble. He's been getting me into fights. He's been getting me into barbershop squabbles. Is that what they call it? Squabbles? Yeah, he's been getting me into a lot of different things. You know what I mean? So I do want to talk about this capitalism, this black capitalism, because what he says makes so much sense to me. But for many, I found myself in debates that went on for hours. I remember one time he came and he spoke at TNAT down when we were on Bel Air Road, when he had to come through the cut, you know what I mean? And basically, he did a presentation, and I was in the back with a dear brother. With a dear brother, I won't say no names. Another person been on this podcast. And basically, we were going at it for hours. I think at some point his wife was like, "All right, baby, let's look. Y'all not gonna agree, And so Dr. Ball has gotten me into some fights, some friendly feuds. I don't even know if it's friendly. I think at some point it has caused some friction in some of the spaces and community spaces, especially the barbershop. The barbershop, the barbershop is coming for you. You know what I mean? And I want to talk about that, family. Make sure as you come in, you like, share, subscribe. This is going to be an awesome conversation. The title is Black Capitalism, Financial Literacy, MLMs, the Dream We're Still Buying. You know what I mean? I titled that because I want to have a conversation with Dr. Ball as a person who has been I know the dreaded word, Geechee, don't get me. Brother Geechee, don't do it. Brother Geechee, I'm sorry, I'm just speaking English, you know what I mean? Dr. Ball, I'm just speaking English. You correct me and give me another word by the time we finish here today, all right? Yeah. So a businessman, an entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, for the sake of conversation, I've been one of those for a pretty long time. I'm saying so long that it started in my teenage years. Was I even a teenager yet? I'm saying literally a person who basically had my own business since I was a teenager. I had a few jobs, but I'll be honest with you. The most real job I've had was being a college professor. And I was full-time for a while, Doc, and I think I'm going to talk about that a little later. I was full-time for a while, but I think I can aid in the discussion, in the battle, in the beef that you find yourself advocating for college professors as being workers. You know what I mean? So, so again, family, come into the building. Family, like the video, hype the video, like the video, hype the video, share, subscribe. Let's get the people in the chat right now. Docs, I call it Dr. Dawes Lecture Hall. Family, come into Dr. Dawes Lecture Hall. We have a guest lecturer today, Dr. Ball, and this is the type of lecture style I do in the institution anyway, because I bring other people in. Dr. Ball got away from me last semester. You know, I didn't want to overuse him last semester. He didn't respond to one of my texts. He's the only one thing he didn't respond to. I
missed a text for real.
I said, you know what? I ain't gonna use him because I'm gonna bring him back for something else. I don't want to burn people out. But I got you in the fall. Because we talk about these things in the class. I have fun classes. I teach the classes that I'm not supposed to teach. I teach multiculturalism, and I teach social justice, you know, but they're typically framed from these liberal frameworks, you know what I mean? And I just can't even honestly I can't stand liberal frameworks for the most part. I'm not saying that there's nothing that you can't take out of them, but I swear I was looking at my dear brother Lamont, Dr. Lamont, what's his name? Mark Lamont Hill today, and I swear I be wondering, where is he? Look, I be wondering, like, does he have an answer for anything? He uses this academic, liberal, objective framework so that he won't have to stand on anything. That's what I'm saying, not Dr. Ball. I swear it makes me frustrated because he never, ever, he plays the fence so graciously. He plays it so well, and then he'll take pop shots, and then he'll intellectualize, and he'll never stand on anything. I'm sorry, family. I don't know what y'all doing with y'all. Send it over to Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. You know what I mean? He be playing a lot of intellectual, not having to stand on anything type of politics. I don't know what his politics are. So, nonetheless, getting back to the conversation for today. Dr. Ball, again, welcome. Talk to the people real quick. Let them know quickly. Reintroduce the family to you. I know you're famous already, but you know, reintroduce the people.
Yeah, all jokes aside, I appreciate it. The short of it is, I am a professor of Africana and Media Studies at Morgan State. I was born in DC, raised in where I live now in Howard County, and I've been employed in the city of Baltimore, and someone who enjoys the city and its surroundings for my entire life. So I know the DMV and Baltimore have and even DC proper have their own ongoing distances and beefs and issues, but I personally claim it all. So with all due respect, that is, you know, but and I just, for most of my adult life, have been someone who has tried to support, build, work with any number of alternative, underground, radical, revolutionary organizations, media outlets, and formations. So so that's the short of it. And of course, I have a wonderful wife and two beautiful daughters. And for the most part, you know, if I don't look beyond my own individual experience, I'm very fortunate. So, but yeah, that's the short of it. And but increasingly, I have turned a focus on being critical of what I'm arguing is a narrative more than anything real around what Black capitalism is supposed to be, and what value it is to the Black community, and really to the African diaspora, because this is a diaspora-wide problem as I see it. So, yeah.
So you say Black capitalism as a diaspora-wide problem?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to jump off there.
No, I mean, the very short summary is that, as I've come to now understand it, Black capitalism has always been promoted to colonized African communities as an acceptable, quote unquote, solution from the point of view of the colonizer, because they know that there is zero pathway to liberation, equity, parity, sovereignty along that path. So it has its origins really in this country, and I would argue I don't think I've done the sufficient enough study to claim this with this level of confidence in every instance in the diaspora, but I think that folks would find many parallels to this basic history, that in this country, Black capitalism was evolved as the enslaved were given relative room within the economy of the plantation and internal colonialism to do certain things that whites found acceptable. Mm-hmm. So Black people could set up businesses that satisfied their own communities. And in some cases, even initially, they could do small businesses that satisfied a small white clientele. Mm-hmm. And then once so-called emancipation was offered, the business model simply shifted. And as whites went off and did their own thing, segregated and isolated themselves and more fully, and the Black community similarly, the narrative around what potential there could be sort of evolved fraudulently in a segregated Black community. That is the idea that if I could do this and have a business even under enslavement that I was allowed to do, serving a small Black clientele and even a white one, I certainly under nominal freedom could evolve that into something bigger, capture more of the Black economy, and maybe more than that, and then be free to engage in the national economy, the capitalist economy in this country. And then, of course, and we can come back and talk more about that, this was encouraged as a belief by the white ruling elite and eventually turned into a weaponized form of propaganda targeting Black communities specifically to keep Black people out of more radical militant forms of struggle. Whether it be in labor, socialism, radical revolutionary nationalism, or some other form, all of those were intended to be wiped off the table with the idea that we can business our way, circulate our dollar, in a way that will liberate us. And this is not speculation, it's not Jared's opinion. It's just it's data driven and science at this point. Adding with an added understanding of the propaganda to support it, that this is impossible. So that's why I've increasingly and more want to only talk about Black capitalism in the context of what it actually is, which is only narrative, mythology, propaganda. It is not a real. It's nothing real in any meaningful way, certainly in the way it's been encouraged that we understand it. And it's not a pathway to liberation in any form, fashion whatsoever. And
that's Black capitalism.
Black capitalism, period. So that's one of the points. I understand there's a lot of issues with the Eurocentricity argument around Marx and Marxism, but I still think it's interesting and even funny to point out that the most popular critic in the world of capitalism was a white Jew talking about Europe in the context of Europeans exclusively. In other words, saying that even when everybody's white, capitalism doesn't work. So then if you think you're going to add in an enslaved, colonized, oppressed community whose relationship to whiteness and capital and primary primitive accumulation and all of that has been totally severed, and that this is somehow going to be a mechanism for those communities to use. It's just it's complete mythology. But again, that's why I'm saying we should be focused on many other things if the goal is sovereignty, autonomy, liberation, or anything of the like.
With that, I'm curious. I appreciate that. I'm curious to what an alternative looks like to you. And I'm not asking you that $1 million question that everybody asks you. I'm talking about, even if we consider socialism, what does that look like from your perspective and your framework?
So I think about that. I struggle with this. I admit, I think about this all the time, and where I try to start with where we actually are. So if as a starting point, and I mean this as a the most bare base minimum, we should have a situation where if we look at the United States and it has a roughly $23 trillion gross domestic product, we should be looking at that being redistributed in a way that no one in this country is poor, houseless, without education, healthcare, decent food, vacation time, et cetera, and so forth.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the grand starting point. Now, I know that there's more to it in terms of a kind of world that we would want to have eventually where we readjust how wealth is created, our relationship to the planet, to nature, to extracting resources, to distribute. You know, I would want to eventually. I would hope humanity would move in that direction. But immediately, I think what we should be thinking about is, again, the wealth that is needed to satisfy the needs of everyone, and especially Black people, has already been created. The only problem is it's accumulated in a handful of people. The top 19 families that now have 14% of all the income in this country. That's where it all is. The 1% of the population that are worth $54 trillion of wealth in this country. The 1% of the population is literally at this point worth twice this country's GDP. And yet we're supposed to argue amongst each other about how we are financially illiterate or irresponsible, or we don't support each other enough, or you didn't set up the right business, or I didn't set up the right investment. All of that is nonsense. It's all narrative to distract us from the fact that the wealth has already been created. We've already created it. It's just been siphoned off to someone else. And instead of focusing on who has it and how do we get our fair share, we're being told for more than a century now to do things that no other community in the history of the universe has ever done to accumulate the kinds of wealth that we're supposed to be trying to attract. Nobody has started from the position of enslavement, internal colonization, small business, circulating dollars, and evolved the kind of wealth that we're talking about catching up to. It's all born out of violent extraction and hostility and exploitation. So the only way to reverse or address that is to become a problem that prevents that form of extraction and exploitation, and then redistributes the wealth that, again, we've all already created.
You know, and I appreciate that. I'm curious to, like, have you thought about because it's just some thoughts I've kind of been thinking about recently. I guess I'm asking the same question kind of again, but I'm gonna be more specific. Because one of the questions that came to my mind recently was when we think about racism, and I hear you even critique many of those white people on the left, and how they try to ignore racism many times. So one of the things I've been thinking about is, how does it look though in this country? Like how does socialism look when we consider racism and oppression and all the things that we've kind of have going on, and all the wounds and the traumas, and like I mean, have you thought about that?
Oh, all the time. So again, my initial point is, and again, so first of all, let me back up and remind us all that we're having a very public conversation on a very public YouTube platform. So a lot of what I would argue needs to be discussed in radical political organization offline, where there are no phones and cameras, and myself included, and many of others like me, are not sufficiently involved in that form of organization. So when it comes to this level of public conversation, I'm again saying the bare minimum has to be a starting point far elevated above and beyond where we start often today, which is a redistribution of the wealth that's already created. So to the specifics of this last question, the way I envision it, at least initially, as something that could even happen in my lifetime, is that were there a sufficiently formed radical Black formation, among others, but I always prefer to start there, that was clear on the design, the project of that redistribution, and public policy that redistributes the wealth in this society that we've all contributed to creating, then it would reduce the effectiveness or the impact of the white supremacy and anti-blackness that already still exists. So in other words, sort of to your point, we're already being invited in the context of the history I've already quickly outlined to then form our own businesses and form a sort of a fantasy of a separate economy that cannot happen. And we can come back and talk more about that as well. Also, while operating within this very hostile anti-African, anti-black, white supremacist settler colonials.
Yeah.
So what I am saying is, if there is a public policy move that says, because I'm also honestly less interested in having conversations of I don't want to talk to white people about African humanity, and I don't want to talk to white people about morality, and I don't want to be asking really for anything. I want a movement that makes this a demand and makes it something that is unavoidable and cannot be resisted. And the point would be then that we would have a society that would initially starting look a lot like it does now, except for the fact that you, myself, everyone else would have, because of the redistribution, we would have to work less, we would be paid more, we would have more vacation time, we would have more health care, we would have better housing, we would have no houselessness, and so on and on and on and on. Now, and then, by the way, in my small vision of this gives now more room, both in terms of resource and time and energy, for Black people and Africans throughout the diaspora, if this is extrapolated beyond the United States, to do the things that also that are required for fully reparative effort. So for instance, and I'm sure you could experience this in your work, if people have more time to spend resting, exercising, spending time with family, not stressing over bills, they would have more time and resources to spend time getting the therapy they need, to engage that therapy in a way that is more wholesome and realistic, as opposed to in addition to and in between all of these other various hostilities. So my point is, this is not a move that is looking to address the morals and the attitudes necessarily of any one or another group. It is simply saying, you don't have to like me any more than you did yesterday. The fact remains that the wealth you and I have both participated in contributing in this country is better redistributed. So yeah, you don't like me, but you also don't have to go to work as much. You also have health care that you need. You also have the time off that you need. And you can go spend your extra time with your preferred white folks. Go be over there. Now, maybe this leads to some fanciful future where communities can eventually get to the point where they see each other beyond these hostilities and so on and so forth. Honestly, I don't, that's not my interest, and I don't personally care, because I'm really only interested in the material lived experience. If you don't like me, but you cannot do anything acting upon that to hurt me or my family or reduce my life chances or that of my family, so be it. We don't have to, I mean, even within African communities, we're not all going to like each other. We're not all going to get along. We're not all going to want to be living next to each other. Not every Black person wants to live next to every other Black person. And so be it. We don't all have, but again, if that is not, if that reality is not built on an already existing struggle over jobs and income and health care and all this other stuff, then it just becomes it just doesn't mean as much. It's like, all right, we don't like each other. All right, I'm going to go hang out over here. I'm going to spend my vacation time over there, and you spend your paid vacation time over there. And then, and that's that. So that's my starting point. And again, for me, this is the most minimum and the most liberal I'm willing to accept. This is so I'm happy to discuss more and to consider other more left and more militant things, more African-centered things, perhaps. But that is my bare minimum standard for what I think should be advocated for. And my point, ultimately, I'll stop here, is that the mythology around Black capitalism and is inhibiting our imagination and our political will and our movement towards creating this reality that I'm trying to describe.
So yeah, I appreciate that. So what I'm hearing, in short, and please correct me if I'm too short and not really following, is that the fights are still, certain fights still exist, and you're not really into compelling people to like you or us, or even intra-group debates and fights, like everybody's going to get along one day and sing kumbaya.
I mean, the short answer is yeah, correct. But look, on some level, look, I am an intellectual. I do like research. I like to study. So I do think I do think it would be a value, and it's always a value to step back and try to perform as some form of an objective analysis on whatever the situation. So I'm happy to, if there's, if we want to have discussions about the Ghanaians versus Nigerians and Jamaicans versus Haitians and East Baltimore versus West Baltimore, I'm happy to do that. And I think that should be investigated and analyzed, and there should be an analysis of that. But I don't think, but that's not my primary goal. My primary goal is that all of these people we're talking about have the material lived conditions that at minimum we should all have. And that way, from there, whatever we want to do about the healing of all these other fractures and disagreements, then they can be more meaningful. I think a lot, and to a large extent, a lot of the healing we think we're trying to do, absent addressing this material reality, puts severe limitations on that. If we're trying to have I was even watching the conversation you had yesterday with Brother Elijah, right? About Pan-Africanism. Wasn't that yesterday? Was that yesterday? And I didn't see till the full end, but one of the points that I thought I would have wanted to contribute in that conversation is, how are we defining Pan-Africanism? So because his name was mentioned, but Kwame Ture and the All African People's Revolutionary Party have a very specific definition that I think should be the definition. That is, United States of Africa under scientific socialism, because it addresses all of the component parts of the problem. It addresses the fractures that have caused the colonial divisions of Africa. It addresses the cultural divides that have been imposed on that basis. And it also addresses the material reality that we cannot heal the differences in the relationships between Nigerians and Ghanaians, never mind all the ethnic groups within that, if all of them have colonial relationships to Europe and one another. So similar here, if there are severe limitations put on arguments around what Black people in this country can do, if it's not connected to some sort of specific argument around the material conditions, the economy, and redistribution. So yeah, that's that's where I'm at.
So okay, I mean, so man, that is interesting. I think I was going to go somewhere, but I think I'm following you, right? But then let's just do this, because we're still in this trouble part that you get me in trouble.
All right, sure.
We're still in, like, I need to talk about Brother Jabari.
All right.
I need to talk about these comments right here on my Facebook page. I need to talk about these comments on my Facebook page, and it's interesting because it's kind of like you segued almost perfectly into this. Let me blow it up a little bit more for you. Yeah. So this dear brother here says, personally, Ball should be the last person to be discussing this topic. Now, remember, y'all, the topic is Conversations with Dr. Daw. Well, that's the show. Black Capitalism, the Same Dream. Dr. Jared Ball and Dr. Daw, right? The full title is Black Capitalism, Financial Literacy, MLMs, the Dream We're Still Buying, right? So now, So I put the advertisement up, and this is what I got from dear brother Chris Johnson on my Facebook page. I think he kind of like, I think he sends me a lot of videos and things. But he said, personally, Ball should be the last person to be discussing this topic. Economics is not his area of expertise or discipline. He's not African-centered in his analysis of Black economic issues. He never wants to offer a solution. Now, it's interesting. You said, something earlier, and I think it ties back, and let's have the conversation a little bit, as much as we can have in this little bit of time and on camera. Just being a hotep heckler. Oh, Lord, he didn't give you a name, Doc. Hold up, Doc. He didn't give you a name. He didn't. Look, you ever heard that one before? Hotep heckler?
No.
So I never heard that one before, but a hotep heckler of people committed to resolving and executing solutions, and who uses the term Black, who uses the term Black capitalism in today's dialogue. And I replied, I was going to go back and forth a little bit, but I said, no. I said, Chris Johnson, are you able to call in and talk to him about this? He said, I didn't see his last reply. He says, depends on when the show. He didn't respond. I just said 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. No response after that. But nonetheless, that's the first comment that I got. Any thoughts around that?
So, I mean, it's a similar critique. I don't know, Chris, but it's a similar critique that I get from those who, first, I'm sure they've not read my work on this, and then I don't think that they have let me not speculate. There's not a lot of substance to the critique, but what I will say is this. I will agree with something, though. I'm not an economist, and I don't claim that economics is my area of expertise.
Right.
If I claim any areas of expertise, it is in Black or Africana studies and media studies. And my work on the subject around Black capitalism has been around what I keep calling cavernous gaps, the wide distances between what is claimed popularly about Black people in the economy and what are the realities. And when I've studied the realities and when I study the dominant narrative, there's a huge gap between each, and that's where now, who uses Black capitalism? I'm not sure where Chris is in this discussion, but it's a phrase used still quite often, both in academic, journalistic, and organizational spaces, and then as a concept, it's talked about all the time.
Yeah.
In Black media, the Black press. Yeah. Certainly Black targeted media as well. So I'm not sure what Chris's media diet it looks like, but I feel like he's missing a lot of the discussion. And certainly where I and others work at Morgan State and elsewhere, where we're inundated with the popularity of business schools. The concept of Black capitalism is prevailing. It's the dominant mode of analysis on these campuses. So, all right. So that part I don't agree with. I would also agree. I think there is room. So I've spent a lot of time in African-centered spaces and academically, organizationally, et cetera, and so forth, socially. But I think there is a fair critique to say that my analysis is not African-centered per se. It is not strictly African-centered. I'd like to think that it involves a component. It involves African-centered thought. But I think there's a fair. It's fair to say that. What I would want to know though is how does that mean my analysis is flawed, and what about my analysis or argument is flawed as a result of this perception or the reality that my analysis is not sufficiently African-centered, and to what extent does that inhibit my conclusions? And rather than just but I am a little bit. The only thing I would be a little bit offended by is the Hotep heckler line, because first of all, even if my analysis is not African-centered per se, I have always been a strong proponent and defender, and one who is even engaged in African-centered analysis. In many ways, I come out of an African-centered analytical framework academically and educationally, and training-wise. So I think that's and I've been also one to argue that the popular, unfortunate popular rebranding of the term Hotep has been sort of a psychological warfare, counterinsurgent mechanism to diminish and negate the power of African-centered analysis and the work in that. So a lot of what has popularized, become popularly, you criticize some of it yourself, what has become popular form of African-centered performance has led to many dismissing it as the so-called Hotep. So, and I don't heckle anybody. I offer, actually, let me say, sometimes I've descended into some pettiness. Let me not be, but for the most part, I don't heckle anybody. I just simply say, in this area, we have a disagreement. Here's why we disagree. And here's why I think your, in some cases, your analysis might be improved by hearing some of mine. So, but ultimately, I would want Chris and anyone else to move beyond the ad hominem sort of nonsense in Facebook and YouTube commentary and say, what is Jared actually saying? If they want to engage my work at all, if they want to, if they want to engage me at all, what is he actually saying? What does his work actually do? And what is he wanting to do? And then where there are gaps and flaws, lay them out without all the hostility. If the goal is to build, if the goal is to just be anonymously taking shots online, then have at it. The last thing, very quickly, is that he said that that is often put on me is oh, now I forgot. How did the comment end? What was the last thing about the comment? Solutions. So a lot of I've heard a lot of criticism of my argument in around that I don't offer solutions. And usually what that means is they just don't like the solutions that I offer.
Yeah.
But I also do like to point out that what they often want to consider are solutions are not. So at minimum, I'm saying we need to get rid of some of these mythologies before we can come up with what an actual solution would be. But then I also do offer solutions that we even started by talking about some of them that some represented in the comment there by Chris don't want to engage. So look, political struggle and liberation is difficult work, and it's sometimes complicated and nuanced. So it's going to require a little bit more than that level of dismissiveness if we're going to get somewhere. But that's it.
Yeah, I mean, you just keep setting it up. I don't know what kind of African-centered magic you working here. But hey, you keep like setting it up for the next segue, right? So with that, is another brother here, Terrence Satepinrai Wilson, who says this was one of the hardest books. You see the segue? This was one of the hardest books, he says, to complete for me. I pushed through to challenge my biases, but it was hard. Let me see. I'm trying to say, I don't think I can make it any larger. Hold on. Okay. Why is it stuck? Okay, y'all. All right. I'm trying to. Okay. Let's try it again one more time. He said, it says here, again, Terrence Satepinrai Wilson says, this was one of the hardest books to complete for me. I pushed through to challenge my biases, but it was hard. And then he posted something from 2022 that he posted September 24th, 2020, actually. He says, I'm currently reading The Myth of Black Buying Power by Jared Ball. The book has a lot of data to support his assertion that Black buying power is a myth, which I appreciate. It's just as hard. It's just a hard read for me, as I'm getting a socialist vibe that's painting business owners, etc., as the bad guys. That's my interpretation, not slandering the brother at all, but I can usually zip through a book really fast. This one is taking longer as I'm working through my biases as I'm reading. looking forward to completing it and going over the sources of his research. Just hope that there's a solution that doesn't require the benevolence and goodwill of the government and corporate America for our community to become empowered.
No, exactly. So first of all, let me just say, this is exactly what I appreciate.
Yeah.
First of all, Terrence said, I'm reading the book.
Mhm.
So let me just start by acknowledging that, because so many of the people that have been critical of me don't read the book.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. I also appreciate Terrence acknowledging that there are some biases that he's being challenged.
Mhm.
And I've gotten that a lot. But I think this is important. We
Mhm.
all have to challenge our biases
Mhm.
and be and the truth should be able to withstand severe criticism.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate that. He's right that he gets socialist vibes from me. I claim socialism. I have no problem with that. I don't. I think again, it's a bare minimum. It's the bare minimum for me. And by socialism, I just mean democratic control over the economy, where wealth is redistributed and there's no exploitation of labor. So for me, again, this is a bare minimum of any organized society.
Mhm.
I also agree that to the extent that I do point to a solution in the book, it's absolutely not pointing to the benevolence of the government or corporations. It's advocating for Black people to organize themselves into a force of political power that assumes political power and the ability to set public policy, to in this case redistribute resources that make sure Black people have more than whatever everybody would need, since again we've all already produced the wealth.
Mhm.
But yeah, but again, so I have no problem with that. And then lastly, I'm not meaning, I don't think I do this at all, and I certainly didn't mean to. I am not painting business owners, Black business owners, as the bad guy. I'm painting the claim that business ownership is the solution to Black oppression. That is a bad guy that has been set upon us by white ruling elite settler colonial capitalists. And I detail in the book a little bit of I detail the pathway and the mechanism by which they've done that. And in some subsequent work and in over the years, adding to that in video and some forthcoming written work, I'm showing even more how the myth and the narrative of Black capitalism has been weaponized against Black people. The whole point of the argument is that Black people have been targeted with a form of psychological warfare and propaganda that has been developed specifically to move a very threatening internally colonized population into more safe, from the perspectives of the ruling elite, forms of political struggle. So, and one of those forms is through business. And again, one of the reasons that business is cannot satisfy the revolutionary needs of Black people, or really anyone, goes back to, again, what I was saying. All of the land is all of the natural resources, all of the stock. What is it? 1% have 50% of the stock. 4 white men in the country have more land in this country than all the Black people combined, and on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
The accumulation of wealth, investment capital, all of this, the control of supply chains, as Too Black has been writing about lately. All of this makes the establishment of an autonomous Black business community impossible in this current structure. So, and those who rule know this. So they know that by encouraging energy be put in that direction, Black people will never become a threatening force.
So with that, Doc, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the the fluid manner that you are really dropping this. I know that's also been a critique. I don't know. You just seem very fluid to me. But it's a lot to take. I appreciate the articulation, the clarity. Now, kind of coming to a close with this beef that I find myself in. So I'm gonna say it like this. One brother even said to me, he says, "Brother, you are a businessman. You are a businessman. How do you listen? How do you agree with that?" And I said, "Yeah, I agree with it. I'm a businessman, but I agree with it."
you should know more than I do the difficulties
yeah, that's
that face Black business people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I realized it because I've been a business person so long. I mean, there's things that, like, I'll be real honest, like, it's a difficulty for me to go and punch a clock right now.
Yeah, who wants this?
Yeah, it's also very tiring. I mean, just to be real honest. Now, being a business person is a whole different type of tiring. And I want to talk about that today because I think sometimes we be under these illusions. Now, I'll be real honest, Dr. Ball. For me, I think that somehow I have the wiring to withstand and endure what it takes to be in this, what they call a business person. Like, I'm not saying that's like what I'm wired for. I'm just saying I have a type of wiring that allows me to have certain levels of tenacity and the ability to overcome, and like it does some. My wiring even probably desires it, if that makes sense. Like, you know, like some people, they're just like intellectual challenge. There's a need for that, right? I also have the need for that, but there's a need for me to do something outside of a 9-to-5. Just be real honest with you. Or even like, I mean, there's jobs I probably could do, but they will have to be something somewhat similar. You know what I mean? Like, I promised myself after the economy had crashed. That's why I went back to school, because I was a business person. And then the economy crashed in 2009. I was still jamming off for a few years. But let me get to what I'm really trying to say here. Brother, how could you agree with him as a business person? The reality is, yeah, I'm not taking this as a personal attack. Just like I get it, like people with degrees did a lot of bad things. You know what I'm trying to say? Dr. Amos Wilson talks about it, right?
Yeah.
You know, like you talking about they create some of the most horrendous and human exploitative type of mechanisms, from whatever theory to bombs. But that ain't me. And I know why I'm doing a business. One, for my own wiring, and two, and what makes it work, my wiring is also community oriented. So because my wiring is community oriented, it ain't but so much I can do in business. I'm gonna be real honest with you. I can't do but look. In my 20s, I've had serious business, made serious money, but there's only what I've learned through that process. I can't do everything in business. People come to me with all types of business ventures. I'm like, nah, I can't do that. Like even right now, like people like I do this type of business. Why? Because it's so community oriented. And yes, there's struggles in business, right? And I think that sometimes when I listen to even my clients, I don't tell them this all the time, like not directly, unless we got some real rapport going on. I can't stand to hear. I'm sorry. When I say stand, I'm not talking about the people, but it's hurtful to me when I hear another brother or sister coming in with a t-shirt dream, another clothing line dream, another, like, what I'm saying is, when I really think about it, and I used to train people, Dr. Ball, and I had something called revolutionary real estate investing. You hear me? The things that you even critique, like, I don't even know if you was critiquing it back then like that.
No.
But when I was doing that, I literally thought that I could somehow, listening to the elders and reading certain books and looking at this whole thing, we could business our way out, finance our way out, real estate our way out, or what have you. But I realized without the academic, with training or the books, it wasn't gonna work. I realized that okay, let me go back. One of my struggles is this. I cannot stand, when I say stand, when I hear people talk about they want to open a business, it's kind of like little boys continuously saying they want to make it to the NBA.
There's an element to that.
Huh?
There's an element to that.
Yeah, so it's like, I think people think it's just that easy. Like, there is a certain way you have to be able to think And I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Like, and if you can't think that way, this is one of the things you say. Now I'm gonna say it my way because, sometimes what you're saying. Like, there's a certain way you have to think. There's hoops you have to jump through. There's certain you have to be on it. You have to be on it. Let's just say that. And if you're not on it, then you are now being accused of being lazy, shiftless, not intellectual enough. Like, in other words, you're the problem because you can't open up a business. But the reality is, from my experience, and I hired many contractors I'm talking about contractors who I gave a route to. I'm talking about they could easily make thousands of dollars a week. And what I realized in that business in my 20s is that they couldn't do it. I'm saying I literally opened up my warehouse. I literally opened my warehouse up, Dr. Ball. And the reason why I got into business now, reason why I did it and I started it is because I said my people need to be treated well. I'm in my 20s and I can do it, and I'm going to treat them good. I'm not going to treat them like these other contractors treat them. Then I realized why the other contractors treat them that way. And I also, because they can't do it. And then there's pressure from the top. There's pressure from the top, and they already in their lives, they're already dealing with all types of hurt, pain, unhealed trauma, addiction, abuse, all types of things that a paycheck cannot heal. You know what I mean? So that's what I realized. I realized money would never fix our community alone. I realized that in my 20s, and it was so hurtful to me. And I understood to some degree now why some of the people who have contractors, I'm talking about other Black people look like us. Now there's this war between the contractor and the contractees, I guess, is that a word? Yeah. So that is what I realized, because it's hard. It's a fight. And then they think that they lie on you. I'm talking about as the contractor. And then they think you stealing their stuff, and it's all types of stuff. But nonetheless, what I'm trying to say is I realized that financially, that business would never be enough. One more example. In real estate, I taught people how to invest in real estate. I'm talking about like just easy, like well, it's not easy. It's not easy. Let me be real honest. It's not easy. People say it's easy. For me, it's a bit easy, right? Easier. Let me just say that. It's not easy at all. But I also realized that people would sign up for my program, and I had the cheapest program because I called it revolutionary real estate. People charging $50,000 for what I did for a few $1,000s or less, free even at times. You know what I mean? And I talked to a good brother of mine here because he and I was like the #1 wholesalers. He actually went to Morgan State. His name Marcel Humphrey. I talked to him. One day he was like, Dennis, I saw him at the vegan spot. He was like, Dennis. And he said, there's more money. And this is what you and Geechee and Diallo often talk about. There's more money in selling the courses than it is actually doing the work. Yeah. Now, let me just, I'm in my 20s. No, 20s. And I'm telling you, I'm jamming off. And he jammed off for real too. I'm saying I was closing deals, Dr. Ball. I'm talking about serious 10,000, maybe 5 times in a month with just flipping contracts. And he's saying there's more money in selling the courses. Now, I never got good at that. But even a lot of that, I'm not really settled with any longer, to be honest with you. But the thing what I realized in bringing people into my courses, and as I was taught that most of us aren't going to do anything, like I went through a course. I went to Texas. I went all over the place and learned how to invest in real estate through an MLM, by the way. But I was the only one learning how to actually use the product. Everybody else is pushing this pyramid. But I was learning how to invest in real estate, but I was already a business person. So we can get into that. But what I'm trying to say is what I realized as I was taught, maybe one of you in this room would do something with it. And that's in a room with white people and all these other people. But when I started doing it, and I'll tell them, they'd be like, I'm like, maybe one of you would do it in this room. Most of you probably won't. And I realized the numbers were even lower as it pertained to being successful in our own communities. I'm not saying I haven't helped people, but it started really frustrating me because I would tell people, don't sign up with this course. I'm telling you, I'm hardly even charging anything for the course.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sign up for this course if you're looking to use this to pay your rent. If you're using this to flip a deal so that you can catch up on your bills, because you're going to be too stressed to even do it. One, and two, most people, they just couldn't afford it. I'm talking about I had like, if you want to think about it, a sliding scale. I'm not a funnel guy. I never been a funnel guy. So like, what I mean is like never like the sales funnel that like my dear brother Boyce Watkins does. Like he's really good at it. Like they do all the sales, like the upsells. They get you in there with the free thing, and they upsell you, like all of that. What I'm trying to say is,
he had to take a job at Morehouse.
You think he had to take it?
Yeah, well, he claims he didn't, but the point is the hustle of charging working class Black people to teach them courses to get rich it has to be running out. So Morehouse comes and offers him a job, or he asked for a job. I don't know exactly how it went, and of course he's going to take it because. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
I appreciate that, right? Because business is not easy. I'm just gonna go to that point and I'm gonna throw it back to you, because you said something. You said you would know more than me. You can make good money, but business is hard. And I think that's what you talk about, like business.
Well, but I'm also talking about but I'm also thinking of the entire community. So you, as a business owner, could have done well, relatively speaking, to the average Black male income earner in the United States. But the idea that you were going to be generating, as they like to promote, generational wealth for yourself and for everybody else in the community is part of that's the mythology. And that's what I'm trying to say. I do not have a problem with anyone, especially African people, saying, I don't want to work in these jobs. I want to set up my own business and work for myself, or do something like that. Or I want to get, I think I have a pathway to individual relative richness if I do this, that. I'm not mad at that per se. The problem I have is the narrative that this will work for all of will heal all of the material and economic wounds of Black and African people. That's the nonsense. If we just look at the data around, and again, to that initial critique, by the way, I meant to bring that up. It is true, I am not an economist, though I read economic data and reports regularly, almost daily. And then I also sent my work in terms of peer review and blind peer review and not blind peer review to economists, Black economists, radical economists, et cetera, and so forth. And to the extent that people care about this, that's why the second edition of my book on Black buying power has a foreword in it from Derek Hamilton, who is, among the leaders of Black economic analysis and study in this country, albeit, and we joke about this from time to time, albeit, a bit more liberal than I am. But the point being that the data is clear. Black people do not get the venture capital investment that other businesses get. Black people are trying to satisfy and serve a consumer base that is mostly Black and itself economically deprived and depressed. So Black businesses are serving Black communities that don't have a lot of money.
Let's say this though. Let me go back.
And one more piece. Let me just make one more point about that. And the sectors of the economy that these Black businesses are in the lowest, smallest, less wealth producing areas. To your point, t-shirts, hair care, all that kind of. That's where service industry stuff, because again, even in all white world, the dominant sectors of the economy are accumulated and monopolized by a handful of people. That's why even in white America, there's only one Bezos and one Gates and a handful. Like, it's not. White folks only can say that they're doing well relative to all the oppression heaped on Black and other communities. So that's why, again, I think it's funny when people say, ignore Marx and ignore all of this and all that he was really only talking about white folks in a white setting for the most part, and showing that even there, capitalism can't work. for a majority of the people who are workers. So it is workers who we should address ourselves as in terms of our relationship to this economy and say most Black people are going to be workers. Therefore, the wealth they produce as workers should come back to them at least as much by percentage as goes to so-called owners. So we are encouraged through enormous propaganda that the ruling elite have by design imposed on us to help create this level of confusion among all communities, and in particular ours. So this is again why I keep coming back to, I want to make this argument that Black capitalism is narrative warfare. It is, as Dylan Rodriguez is talking about, lexical warfare. It is not anything based in reality that we should try to follow and emulate. And by Black capitalism, I just mean all of the circulating dollar, Black entrepreneurialism, Black bank, buy Black, bank Black, all of these calls, shop Black, all of these calls are wildly limited in what they can do for the entire community.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I wanted to back up because
Sure.
I think there's different levels of analysis here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, or maybe I'm just trying to put some realistic meat on the bones in a sense, right? Like, and I get the conversation around this one individual family benefiting, but also I think it's also essential to note that those who try to do it in a way that is also beneficial to the community run into many more hurdles than one.
That's my point.
Yeah. And that they run into many more hurdles. And then they also begin to realize the limits of what they can do, even if they do make a couple $1 million a year.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, it's very difficult. And I want to get back to the point about how difficult it is, because I do want to make it clear, like, no one should have to create a business. No one should be forced to say, if you're not an entrepreneur, and I'm saying that, I think this is what you're saying as
Absolutely.
well. No one should be forced to say you need to have to be an entrepreneur, or you're lazy, you're not industrious, or what have you, because I'm trying to equate it to something like just crazy, like making it almost to look. I know it might sound bizarre to people, and they might be like, what are you talking about? I know too many people who try to start businesses and they fail.
Look, one of I cite it all the time. One of the best sort of highlight headline studies that I came across in doing this research showed that from 1996 to 2012, Black people created more than 2 million businesses in this country, and their capture of the national sales revenue dropped from 1% to 0.5% or something like that. Meaning that the problem is not Black people's unwillingness or incapability of starting a business. It's that there are, again, severe limitations of what those businesses can do, even for that one business person, never mind for the entire community. And that's why I'm saying I don't have a problem. And again, look, I've talked about this myself. The only reason I'm a professor is because it was the only job I could see myself doing. To your point, I'm not punching clocks. Like I had done all that. I did the military. I did dishwashing. I did pizza delivery, bartending. I did, picking up I did all of this stuff.
Right.
And it was like, this sucks.
Yes, sir.
And when I went to college and saw my history professor and his life schedule, never mind, I didn't even know what his salary was. I was like, wait, you got summers off, winters off, spring break. You get sabbaticals. A flexible schedule. You're not punching a clock and sitting in a room all day. I was like, this is, and I said, and all I have to do is go in at the time wild amounts of debt and read a whole bunch of books, and I can do this. Bad. I was like, this is because I'm not here to work hard. Like I've been very clear since I was a kid. I'm not here to the mythology around this Calvinistic nonsense around hard work and hard work is godly and all that. I was like, that's nonsense. This is a hustle. So I've only added substance and depth to that original foundational bias and learned that that's absolutely right. And all of those things about work hard and you this and that and And to Diallo's point on our Earn Your Liberation show, we're making fun of the Earn Your Leisure crew who have adopted a Nazi death camp brand, which where on atop the death camps it would be things written like earn your leisure, like earn your, it would, I forgot the exact phrasing, but it was like work yourself to freedom. It was that kind of thing. So our ancestors were told versions of that. Work yourself and earn your freedom from the plantation. We're told a version of that today. I'm supposed to work. I'm 54 now. They told me I can't even start thinking about retirement until 62. And just thinking about it, 62. I'm like, that's way past my wife's family. Do you know I have an in-law who has a similar professorial career in Panama? She retired at 40. With full benefits, health care, etc., and so forth. Retired at 40. And they're talking about, I can't even think about it until I'm 62. And I'm sitting here saying, this is all part of the hustle that we are, that revolutions have been trying to address for a long time. I reject that I and my people or anyone is put here just to work and then die. And just to work to earn money for this 1% that's sitting up there with $54 trillion in wealth, while we are all in various descending ways struggling and stressed and worried. Even those of us in this so-called, ivory tower academic profession, which is not, there's no such thing as an ivory tower, it's all mythology. We're stressed. I was just on a call literally with one of my comrades and colleagues, one of my homeboys at your and our beloved Bowie State. Y'all saw this, Bowie State is they're talking about retrenchment. They're talking about there's no more money. Faculty gonna get fired. Departments closed. This is what we have versions of that all throughout the academic universe. Versions of that in Morgan. So even those of us who are supposed to be in these, again, ivory tower utopian areas of the economy are struggling, are desperate, underpaid, overworked.
Yeah.
I'll be teaching 5 classes this fall. This will be my 20th year. I'll celebrate my 20th anniversary at Morgan with a 5th class.
Whew.
While they just posted a job announcement for the department I used to be in, where the new hire will likely start at a salary that I'll never earn at Morgan. And I'm a full professor, in-field PhD, tenured, impeccable record. So my point in all that is, even where I'm supposed to be, and I am relatively privileged in this economy, none of us have it good. We're all underpaid and overworked, and everybody is on some form of concern about the brink of losing their job, and then what? So that's why I'm saying, and I am increasingly becoming angry about it. And it is that I really don't want to have any more conversations. And I'm tired of the narrative that is imposed on us that we have to be better. We have to be more financially literate. We have to have a better mindset and all this other complete nonsense. None of that has to do with why Black people are poor. None of that has to do why this level of inequality that is increasing, by the way, is the reality. It's all about the nature of the economy, our relationship to it, and ultimately, as Bruce Lee famously said, the enemy has only images and illusions. If we can break this image and illusion of Black capitalism, we might be in some business. Pun intended. To get into business for real, we need to break this Black capitalist mythology. I'm gonna start running with that one too.
Yeah.
The business of freedom means we got to break the mythology of Black capitalism.
Yes, I appreciate that. Even the pun intendedness. Intended. So yeah, I haven't been able to look into the chat so much, but I did see somebody say y'all both are right. I don't know if they thought I was disagreeing with you. I haven't disagreed with them yet, honestly. I will disagree with them. I used to disagree with people just because I wanted to disagree with people. I don't even do that too much no more. But let me see. Let me see. What can I disagree with Dr. Ball about today? Let's see. Well, okay, let me think about one thing, and I'm, because I don't want y'all to say I'm like an FBA'er
Oh no.
for Dr. Ball.
Oh no.
What's the name of your group, Dr. Ball? You got your own version of FBA out here?
No, what I got?
You
What do
got
you
the
mean?
how do you what's the acronym for Myth of Black Buying Power? What's the,
Oh, MOBP?
I'm an MOBP.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was something earlier, and you spoke about an African-centered framework or perspective.
Mhm.
You know what? I think that your framework can fit inside of my African-centered framework.
Mhm.
So I don't really like. I could even encapsulate all you say. I do, in fact. What you say, your analysis, I can honestly, personally, this is where we probably can disagree. I can, like, for example, I was on a brother's show the other day, and he asked me about socialism.
Mhm.
In fact, I've heard you kind of answer this question before. I think you kind of like saying, well, let me just come straight forward now. Sometimes you be like, well, I don't want to trigger people by terms,
Yeah.
and like me, I don't really like, I get it. Like from an African-centered perspective, like I can do without the term. I can take all the definition and whatever you want to call it, you call it that. But it still fits in my African-centered framework. Like, so example, okay, what is the definition? Just for clarity, you said it already.
Mhm.
What is your definition of socialism?
Again, simply put, for me, socialism is the democratic control of the economy. It is a national ownership of the economy, where all the major areas of production in a society are owned democratically by the people, and the wealth produced is redistributed. So you could have, again, in my initial thought of it, you could have a society that looks a lot like it looks today. You could have businesses. You could have, in some cases, you need industry.
Right.
So, and I am for hierarchy.
Right.
So you would have, some earned management, bosses, hierarchy. But what you might not have is that the boss is making, I think what the CEO now is making 400 times the worker. You wouldn't have that. So you might all even be paid the same. You might, it might even be a situation where the leadership is nominal, and it's not reflected in pay, because everybody's getting a much more of a fair share. So that's really all I'm saying. So when I do think of it, and I've had a lot of these arguments and debates and discussions, when I do think of it in terms of an African-centered approach, and why I've become more aggressive in accepting the label of socialist, is that I don't want to run from it under having it be thrown away as a European Eurocentric idea. I very much am with Kwame Ture on this, that there are only two ways to have an economy. Either the wealth that's produced is privately owned, or it's collectively owned. So that's it. And my version is collectively owned, and in this sort of modern form of the economy, call it socialism. That's it. The other thing I like to point out is that frustrates me for a long time in these conversations is, without that explicit recognition, a lot of what does come off in African-centered conversations masks some sort of private accumulation as African and revolutionary. Because it ignores the redistribution piece of the economy. So it allows for a misdefining of African nationalism, where you would allow for some sort of a black-led capitalist form of an economy. And that's where I do agree that there are some shortcomings, and why I've said I've agreed with the Kwame Ture version of defining Pan-Africanism as explicitly incorporating a scientific socialist component. That is an ordered, managed redistribution of wealth so that there is nobody suffering. Last on this point that frustrates me in this is that, if I'm honest, I think there's and I would invite others to be as honest as I think I'm being here. many people who are critical of socialism have not read about it, have not studied it. They dismiss Marx, they dismiss Marxists as Eurocentric, and where that bothers me more than anything is they cut themselves off from so many in the African world who have done mighty things with those concepts. So I'm not saying put Marx up on your wall next to whoever. What I am saying is let's not deny that when Cabral, Lumumba, Malcolm to a certain extent, the Panthers, Biko, when any of these people pick up Chris Hani versions of this and incorporate some element of it into their analysis, beautiful things happen. So that's George Jackson, you know, that's my guy more than anybody at this point. And what they're doing is they're saying, and this is where, as I understand what they're doing, they're saying, I will pick up anything that will help me understand how I'm going to get my people free. And the African-centered component for me comes in that their primary concern are African people. So even if they engage in some form of Marxist analysis, the point is, I'm trying to free African people. That's my concern. Now, I'll stop. Yeah, let me stop there. Because I think that there's flaws in that too. And I said I was going to stop, but having my own background in training, I recognize the limitations in that, and I do appreciate the I guess the traditional African contribution to these arguments and discussions. I just want them to be increased in their militancy and then focus on some sort of explicit material redistribution component. That's all right.
That's I agree with that, and I appreciate that. The part that I think I guess I appreciate the most is what you close with, in fact, because I find that to be true as well. And what I mean by what you close with is to include, well, just in fact, the general, let's say what you said in general, because there is this ignoring of, like there's this way that capitalism kind of creeps up inside of some of our African-centered, well, I mean, I don't even know if it's the framework, but just people, like we just like allow that to creep in, and then this becomes a liberatory act. In fact, like for example, like I was saying, revolutionary real estate investing, right? Like it becomes a part of what people are saying is revolution. I've even heard people say opening up a business is revolution, right? And I've also heard like that there's this ignoring of capitalism and how it destroys. You know, even though they might even mention it, but then I'll mention it and then I'll just be a capitalist, you know. And then it's interesting because on Black Liberation Media, I can't think of the Baba's full name, but Dr. Sundiata
Chajua, yeah.
Okay, I won't try the last name this late. But he had Milana Karenga, and I knew that was very interesting. Because my first introduction to you, I think, I heard you like really coming hard for like Dr. Milana Karenga and Kwanzaa and all these things. I think I was at one, I think I might have been at a Haki Ami event. But it might have been a Haki Ami event. Interesting, right? At the high school down there right off of Martin Luther King Boulevard. And you came in, and I was like, this guy's intense. But nonetheless, when Dr. Sundiata Chajua, okay, on he brought Karenga on, and he at the beginning said, "Karenga, let them know you're a socialist." And I don't. Did you pick up on that?
It's been a while, but I did. And so, just to be clear, my criticism of the popular approach to Kwanzaa is that this sort of my point. The vague reference to collective or cooperative economics leads to too much confusion.
Yes.
And people will conflate cooperative economics with I'm gonna start a business, and if I hire a black person, that's cooperative economics or something to that, something like that. And my argument at the time and still to this day is I think that's where my point about Kwame Ture becomes important to me. That without an explicit call for socialist redistribution, it leads to too much confusion. So now in my life, up until very recently, I admit I've been very reticent because of the spaces that I've operated in to define myself or to make the claim in that way, because I understand that when you say socialist, many people start to think, oh, he's Eurocentric, it's Marx, we don't want to deal with that. So I've tried to avoid that, and I think that's a mistake, and I'm wanting to change that and just address things as I honestly see them and deal with the consequences. But that was my point, that I don't want, I'm not in any way encouraging, intending, desiring African people to move themselves cognitively, geographically, physically, socially, in any other way towards whiteness. What I am interested in is, in the same way that someone might use some other form of European technology to better their, efforts, that why cut ourselves off from a wing of analysis that in the hands of African people and revolutionaries around the world has moved people into some very beautifully militant positions. So, and that's really my only point. Because, and I think we've all seen versions of this, left in the vague, defined way as it often is. A lot of reactionary, unprincipled bad actors can cloak themselves in the call of cooperative economics and Ujima and claim some sort of Africanness while exploiting their community, even unwittingly. So that was my point then. The only other issue that I've ever, I think, shared publicly, my criticism of Karenga, was the roughly 4-hour interview I did with him during my thesis work on Dr. Clark that had to remain off the record. Because, as he said, he had very little positive to say about Dr. Clark, and he would not have wanted that to be on the record. So, so that was the only, that in my point about Kwanzaa was really all I've ever had
that's
to
what
say
I heard. Kwanzaa
about Karenga publicly.
It was definitely about Kwanzaa, right? Yeah. And I appreciate that. And you just said something a little earlier that I agree with you. I appreciate your analysis always, even if I don't agree, but I appreciate the analysis. Like it helps me. This is where I want to go. Yeah. Like, as I'm writing, I'm like, you've been so critical that when I'm writing things, I say, I have to bring in this element, because if I don't bring this element in, I'm gonna become the content for Dr. Ball. Nah, man. No. Even though I'll be like, no. I think it'll be a fair analysis. Like, well, this is part is lacking. Like, even like, I'm actually writing an article with some people right now, and one of the things I think about is something you said you did, like collectively wrote an article, and you're not responsible for everything that everybody writes. So you have to agree on some things. Yeah. And so some of the things are very light for me. Yeah. Now I'm writing the structural piece, so and then it's like, well, Dennis, can we use some different words? And Trump is in office, and
that's a big one right now. That's real. That's a big one right now. The Trump in office is I've heard a version of that myself. Can we just this for the current administration? And my response was kind of similar, because we got versions of that when Obama was in office. And there was a version of it that said then, Now it's don't be critical because Trump is gonna take away our resources.
Yes,
and this, that, and third.
That's it.
Under Obama, it was don't say anything critical because you won't get platformed and recognized if you're critical of our first black president. We kind of got to give him a pass type of thing. And my point is there's a consistent, regardless of who's in office, trying to get us to stop offering up a radical analysis. And yes, at times when you are co-authoring things, there needs to be a little negotiation of sorts.
No, I mean, so I appreciate it. Like, yeah. I honestly, I like directness. Mm-hmm. And I've learned from you that we do overlook this. I'm saying, even when I teach my class, when I say what I mean by this, we overlook our economic reality. Mm-hmm. We overlook, even in multiculturalism, we overlook, what is it, SES? We overlook classism. Mm-hmm. I'm saying when I'm teaching multiculturalism, like I know that we overlook racism. That's clear. Like even if racism is mentioned, it is not dealt with. Mm-hmm. And I know even more so, we overlook capitalism. We talk about poverty and the unhoused, and we got all the new liberal euphemistic type of terms that that you just change. I can't stand those terms. I can't stand when people just change things, and sometimes like I don't like it. Honest, it frustrates me. But to help people feel comfortable, or even to kind of like humanize, let's humanize them. See, I don't even like that.
I don't like it either, because
you want to humanize them so you can feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, let's call them homeless. I'm sorry. Like, I don't even like this algorithm unalived, and I can't get with it. Maybe I need to like, I think they're training us. Look, I'm getting.
I mean, however you want to put it, there is a social disciplining that mm-hmm. does take place.
Yeah.
And whether it's that kind of language for the YouTube algorithm or TikTok or whatever, or the job place, mm-hmm. Black people have been code switching for centuries. So there's always a disciplining of language and approach. The whole African-centered struggle and really Black studies even struggle has mm-hmm. been about resisting the discipline of labels, of self-definition, of mm-hmm. And so on. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean.
Well, no, I agree with that, and that's going to take me back to my point. Even just pulling it all together is that so I agree with the idea that from an African-centered perspective, I can still utilize. Like you might not agree with this. I can utilize even if I don't say socialism. Mm-hmm. I can at least speak to it. Mm-hmm. I can speak to it. Like for example. Like that's why I'm saying name for yourself and all that type of thing. That's the part that I kind of get. Like, okay, do we have to use this term this way? Like, so that's my debate, right? Like, can we define the thing and name it something else? I have no problem with that. But I do get it. There's a whole body of knowledge that you might overlook if you do that. So I mean, but again, is it anything like? So yeah, I'm not going to be extreme with it because then we'll just be changing all the words, right? So it doesn't hurt me that much, but I do get why people become triggered by it, because anything white or seemingly white becomes a trigger to Black people.
No, I don't have a problem with. I get that. I get it. I get it.
No, I get it. You explained it actually. Yeah, you explained it.
So I mean, I have personally, to a certain extent, enjoyed and learned a lot from reading Marx, some Engels, some mm-hmm. of the other European writers, and so on. And I've more so I've learned and been impressed by those in the African and world majority populations mm-hmm. who improved upon those ideas and made them relevant to Black people, and in particular, militantly applied them to the condition of Black people. This is why I'm saying so really, as I've say all the time now, George Jackson is right. Mm-hmm. To me, what George said in Blood in My Eye, if and I see Wretched of the Earth over there. But if I had to, if there was one thing, if somebody said, Jared, what do you really think about this world and what has to happen? Blood in my eye is my answer. Update a couple things technologically, geographically, and I think that book for me does it all. But again, I am very much appreciative of the desire among African people to be like, enough with the whites. We have enough. So this is why even when I've engaged some of my African and world majority comrades within socialist spaces, part of my argument has often been that over the years, your approach in recruiting and et cetera has mistakenly centered non-African people. Like, why don't you talk more about Cabral and Touré and Nkrumah and Lumumba and whomever else, Chris Hani in particular? Like, why aren't we talking more about these people if in the course of not just recruiting Black people to revolutionary work, but in teaching African people about their own history? Even in Africana studies, I have to be very real. There's a major problem with this issue. Like, why should I go through the Africana Center and I didn't get introduced to George Jackson there. I remember I had a professor tell me, critically, why are you reading Walter Rodney? He's a Marxist, a Eurocentric Marxist. And I'm, so what I think that speaks to the extent it's still a problem, and I think it is we are even in the most Black and radical intellectual spaces encouraging African people to cut themselves off from other Africans simply because of their perceived association with something Eurocentric. And I think that methodologically is a flaw, because what I know you and I both know ends up happening is that a lot of people in our communities will dismiss Marxist analysis even among Africans without having ever read it. And that to me is the biggest tragedy. So I don't mind whether it's my work or anyone else's, whatever conclusions you reach are secondary to the pathway I think you took to get there. And too much of the pathway we're taking nowadays methodologically involves not reading and accepting the analysis or the claims of someone else. So I just want to encourage us to double check our own biases. I love that one comment you pulled up earlier where the brother is saying, I don't know about Jared, but he is at least challenging me on my biases. And that is very important. We have to be willing to do that.
Yeah. And that's basically, it's not hard to challenge me because I'm like, I like to be challenged in a sense. But at the same time, getting back to what I was saying here is that I appreciate you continually speaking about this thing in different ways, in a variety of ways, from the myth of Black buying power to just plain out saying that there's no class analysis or there's no, like, it's interesting. Like, I've even seen you challenge what's the guy, Finkelstein, and his lack of racial analysis.
Well, I mean,
no, Doc, I got somewhere I'm trying to go.
My bad. Go ahead. Yeah.
So,
let me not stop. Yeah,
so,
my bad. No. You talk about triggered. I got triggered there for a minute. My bad.
Hold on. You want to say it?
No. Go ahead. We got. I'm gonna pass my bedtime anyway.
Oh, okay. Look. You was about to go.
I was about to black out, and let me come back.
Look. I saw you. You moved your leg and everything. You like, oh, I mean, you said I mean.
Oh man.
Yeah. But I agree with you, and I don't think it should be shut down whether or not one likes the word or the label or the term you decide to use. And in fact, that's what you're saying.
Mhm.
You know, now I know other people, a lot of other people, what they do instead, because a lot of people I know, they will study that. They will study all these people. They will talk to those people, but they won't speak to that aspect, or they'll say that they held those views, but because that was what they had, you know, that type of thing. Nonetheless, what I'm saying in my own work, in my own role as a teacher, professor, what have you, I realized the significance of what you've been saying. I'm talking about all the way to the movies that we continually believe are going to liberate us, to the whole idea that Black capitalism is going to liberate us, to the idea that we can look at this thing without nuance, without layers, without, you know, just complexity, especially as it pertains to the economic system we find ourselves under, is not going to really have us really examine the issues to the degree or the degrees that we need to. And I see it every day. I'm talking about with white students and also Black students. I hear the white students crying what they call the crocodile tears, where some of them like, man, they right mean it, what have you. But the reality is they're not ready to give up their stuff, as the sister told me. And they don't even have to think about that. They don't have to think about it because no one ever showed them, okay, you see where you are? You say capitalism and you keep moving. You say racism, you might touch it and you keep moving, but you really don't deal with it. Then it goes to, from me, it goes straight to, I'm sorry, family, it goes to LGBTQ plus. I'm not saying that's not a fight there. It goes, I'm talking about in my academic career, it goes straight to LGBTQ plus issues. It goes to anything white people can do, anything that white people are also a part of.
So, but this for me is why I like the approach I'm trying to work with, that it keeps a certain focus in place. So starting with the last point you raised, I personally I have no problem with however people want to identify. If they want to identify as African people, beautiful. If they identify LGBTQ and then something else in African, whatever, fine. My point would be that every identity that you could ever think of accepting for yourself has a radical tradition that will lead you to an appropriate militant political space if you study it. So this is, again, just my blanket challenge to everybody. If you see yourself as an African-centered, African nationalist, Pan-Africanist, however, whatever, study that revolutionary tradition or the traditions that are in that under that rubric, so to speak, and it will lead you to an appropriate participation in a broader struggle. If you see yourself primarily as a member of the LGBTQ community, fine. There are radical traditions in those spaces as well that will lead you to your appropriate position in the global struggle for liberation if you follow it. So my same thing with people, with we who are mixed. If you prefer some form of biracial, multiracial, whatever, however you want to self, as opposed to Black, African, whatever, fine. Study that tradition and it will lead you appropriately to your radical and militant place within this broader struggle. Ultimately, and by that, I mean, ultimately, as an initial step, addressing ourselves to the material conditions and the maldistribution of the goods, services, and wealth we've all already created. After that gets addressed, this is just my approach, all these other issues will have the space, time, resources, peace necessary to properly address them. So, or to evolve them, to make them better, whatever. So that's my thing. Because too much what I'm seeing, particularly among some of my students, is the encouraged retreat into any preferred identity in a reactionary, individualistic, conservative, at most liberal or neoliberal way. And that I think is insufficient. So I'm not interested in arguing with anybody about what you want to claim it and then study it.
Are you sure about that, Dr. Ball?
I am. Go ahead.
I'm saying, are you sure that all of these identity categories have a radical framework or tradition.
I do.
That like so. Now the reason why I'm asking this is a genuine question, because when I hear now, maybe I don't know the radical tradition and all of these different identities.
I may not either. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not claiming
so-
expertise, but I know they exist.
So, that's okay. It might not be the. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Because my point is, even if we just look at the history of African people, there is every form of categorized, experienced, self-described, claimed label that has found their way into an appropriate participation in the liberation struggle for their people.
Right.
So you have had LGBTQ members of African liberation struggles. You have had socialists. You have had feminists. You
but
have
I think
had.
that's different though.
Okay, go ahead.
I think okay, like, and you we could talk about this because I might not have the history, but what I find is like y'all did a big piece on what's his name? Was it a Lagoon or something like that?
Kwesi Balagoon?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was his primary fight?
Black liberation.
Yeah. So what I'm speaking to is what I'm seeing is like his primary fight was Black liberation, right? But what I'm seeing is like I often hear like Diallo talk about this thing like race first, right? Or race, class, gender. Like people order these things. What like a lot of what I hear people call radical. I'm saying literally they use the word radical. When it comes to a lot of identities, I have no problem. See, I think there's a difference between how you identify. That's not what I'm arguing here. You can identify how you want to identify, but lots of times the politics behind it or the frameworks that's being used actually creates a more victimized type of approach, and actually it creates inner turmoil between those within certain groups. For example, what I find in the LGBTQ plus type of movement, Dr. Cleo Monago, you know about him.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him and his, but I'm not. I'm familiar, but I'm not an expert in his
He
work.
speaks to it quite like people speak to different identities, identity categories. And to me, what I've noticed in practice, even those who call themselves radical, they become what I would call pedestalized victims. And what they do is they're looking for, their goal is to do exactly what we spoke about earlier, is to appeal to someone's morality, in a sense. And I had the same argument for many people who find themselves within these camps. Just like, for example, this whole idea of like, even like some feminist frameworks and perspectives. I'm not saying there's no radical or some frameworks where you're looking at all these things from a multi-lens or multi-dimensional type of perspective or framework, but it becomes the dominant, like for example, they like, I heard you.
But that's my point.
Yeah, go ahead.
But that's what I'm saying. I think I'm following, but that's what I'm saying. This is why I'm encouraging everybody to again, whatever your identity preference is, don't stop there and don't allow that to be an excuse to liberalism or reactionary politics.
Okay,
that's my whole point. So again, as I conceive it in my imagination, we're all walking through a doorway. And that doorway is whatever label we've had imposed on us or whatever label we've accepted. That's our doorway. It's not the Nori door.
The Nori door.
I'm just messing with you. Maybe you don't watch Drink Champs enough.
Yeah,
that's a terrible bad joke. Somebody out there is going to laugh at me on that. But it's this door. This is my so this, again, I'm using myself as an example. I was. Though, well, I was raised with a certain different kind of politics, but the world at certain points has attempted to tell me you are biracial, so therefore you shouldn't associate yourself with a certain Black radical politics.
Yeah.
And my point is, no, there are traditions and an analysis and a way of walking through that biracial door that leads me to radical traditions and a radical analysis or ways to answer the questions I've been wanting to answer about my experience that lead me to an appropriate place within a broader radical militant political struggle. And that's what I'm advocating in terms of everybody. And so we all have our preferences, biases, our issues. I'm not looking to deny any of that. What I do want to do is to tell everybody you don't have an excuse to not get yourself involved in this liberation struggle. So however you want to call yourself, you want to call yourself a Black business person, you want to call yourself a revolutionary, you want to call yourself a worker, a boss, whatever in terms of sexual preference, I don't care. Find that tradition. Don't stop there. You do have a history. You do have a tradition. There is a lineage politically that you can attach yourself to and find the particular answers to your individual subjective questions that will bring you into a broader objective struggle. And my point in this is to say that nobody can become so individualized and subjective in their experience that they don't become part of recognizing the broader. So for me, it is a race national question first. And I guess this is another way of me saying that, of getting that. So, because ultimately I am saying that humanity, however, again, people want to be defined, needs to be free. African people need to be liberated. One of our associated African family, if I may borrow your approach, once took advantage of me making this point on a podium and then put me on a clip, with the rainbow and did the whole thing that Jared has been captured by the queer, whatever, because I answered the question, are queer Africans part of the Pan-African struggle? And I was like, of course. They are African people who deserve liberation. Whatever any of us have as our biases or feelings about that sexual preference, to me, it's irrelevant after the fact of their Africanness. And especially if they're doing as I'm saying we all need to do, find our pathway through that door of our individual subjective identity to that radical contribution, fine. Because how many people are out here saying, I'm a straight cis het Black man, straight African male, blah, who don't do anything of value, who have not found the radical tradition in their straight manhood Africanness, and stuck themselves in that subjective identity and reality and stopped there and said, that's all I need to be. All I need to be is Black, beautiful, and African. And I'm saying that's insufficient. As H. Rap Brown said, the recently deceased Jamil Al-Amin, Black is beautiful, but it's insufficient. Black,
beautiful, and African. Now,
so that's my approach. That's how
No, I agree. I mean, like, I first of all, I don't want it to come across, because just your response was like, I have no problem with how people identify. Me either. I just want to be very clear, right? But two, I think what you've kind of circled back around to is that you have what did you call it? A nationalist?
I mean, I am I do identify as a socialist, but I admit I am race first. I want my approach starts with Black people. And honestly, it starts with this is, I know you struggle with it, starts with Black America, and then through revolutionary nationalism, through the African diaspora.
Which one did I struggle with?
No, I know you have to struggle with our reactionary FBA, because again, these reverse and backwards hashtag communities have taken a very real issue and run it in the reactionary direction. That's in many ways, this is the point I'm getting at. If your self-identity starts with Black America, I have no problem with that. Mine does too, by the way. I have no problem with that. The point is, there is a radical tradition. That's the doorway. And the FBA ADOS people, they stop at the doorway and they see FBA on the door and they're like, I'm good. That's it. I don't need to explore radical traditions. I don't need to have that doorway be my path into militant participation in liberation struggles. They just stop there. I'm saying I start with my Black American identity. and have that lead me to radical traditions within those histories and within that background to something better.
I'm going to have to do some research, because I do follow what you say. I just tend to follow the same order that you follow. Not FBA, but definitely, me being an African in America, African even more globally, but African in America, or black or race first type of approach. But what I find, I haven't really seen it yet, Dr. Ball. I have not seen when it's not ordered that way in our community. And look, I'm gonna look for it. I mean, maybe you have.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
So when people put their gender before they put their race, or they put their whatever it is, the class or whatever the identity is before they put their race, where the person in some ways, I'll give you an example. I'll use FBA as an example. And I know it's about to be 9 o'clock. We didn't get to the MLM.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
Yeah,
my bad. We got to do a. Just I'll come back again.
He got to do a part 2, y'all. Y'all see.
I'm slumping in the chair. I'm getting like I'm.
Yeah.
So we.
And he give me them late night responses like, bro, look. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I feel myself intellectually sunsetting, so I don't want to. I don't want to continue.
It is what it is.
I don't want to drag down the quality of the show.
No. It's good. It's good. We get to see you in all your greatness.
Oh wow!
In your slumping moments and your rising moments.
Like I don't know why can't you do this show at like.
We can.
No, I'm just.
We
playing.
can do a special episode for the Dr. Ball episode.
The AM special.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Finish your point though. Yeah.
Man, we're gonna have to come back for the MLM family. But we did get through a lot of what the black capitalism. But this piece around identity, I think, is something I'm curious to.
But my point would be, just to the extent that you see what you see, I'm arguing that those communities, those people continue to challenge themselves to investigate the radical traditions in that history. That's all I'm saying. So that they don't, so that I wouldn't want anyone to stop at any particular individual subjective identity. I don't want because that can lead to as we were kind of talking about earlier, so many other vague and even reactionary conservative definitions of that.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying. That as a starting point, I understand what you're saying. I hear you. But whether they're in the queer community or any other, stopping at that individual, that initial self-definition or that initial label is insufficient.
Right.
So that's why, for me, part of the Africana studies experience was and I remember in my thesis writing a little bit about this issue of the importance of Africans self-defining, is that the self-definition of one as an African can't simply stop there. That's sort of the point that I'm getting at with Jamil Al-Amin. It's a step that I think particularly Black people in this country need to take to recognize their African identity and their place in an African diaspora. But that in and of itself is insufficient, because you could stop there and you could do, as I've seen many Black conservatives do, where they just throw Kwabena as their middle name and then keep it moving, or they'll just or they'll throw on one or another African clothing or
I think that's different though.
Okay.
I think that's different.
Okay.
And I could be sleepy too, but I think talking about just throwing on a dashiki or changing your name, that might be somewhat of a political notion, but that's not. I'm talking about something deeper than that. I'm talking about your ideological lens. You know what I mean? Like, so those who are very, very trained in their LGBTQ plus politics or ableism, whatever the politic is, right? Whatever it is, that becomes their primary lens that they look through. And then what they do is they weaponize that lens against the others at times. And it happens.
So we
often.
just saw an example of that. You were at, and thank you for coming to the screening of Crushing Wheelchairs.
Yeah.
We just saw an example of that in terms of the disability community. The folks that work there,
Whoa.
some of whom start with an identity of disability
Yeah.
or houselessness or just poor, don't stop there.
Right.
And they start with that baseline identity and then move it to new other levels of radicalism, having investigated the radical traditions of that whatever identity it is. So that's why I'm saying whoever is doing what you're saying in whatever identity category is insufficient and needs to be challenged.
Right.
If there's a member of the queer community that goes through this experience of coming out of the closet and appreciating and enjoying their identity or their new comfort with their identity, I'm fine with that. That's a step, though. That's just a step. The next step or several steps, I would argue, need to include a radical investigation and study of the radical traditions of that particular, and then how does that inform your contribution to a radical liberation?
Let me take it off the male. Let me take it off the queer, because I don't want people to think I'm just coming for the queer, because I'm not. It's just my example, because most of the times when I'm in class, these are the conversations I'm having with my students, right? But I think it's easy for me to come for the group that most people don't give a about. Okay. That's men.
Okay.
So, and I have plenty of smoke for them as well. When I think about the manosphere, right? I'm not as regular trigger happy as Diallo, but there is that they are creating, many of them, even those who are the most, I'm going to say minus. I think, just to be honest and fair, I think Kerry does a pretty decent job. But then there's people like, what's his name? I can't think of his name, but he comes on, he does something every day. And he becomes more like an apologist for the manosphere. I can't think of his name, Steven or something. I can't remember his name. But basically, they take this male identity almost to the degree where it's more essential than their blackness. And when they do that, it creates this oppressed, this is what women are doing to us.
Yeah, I mean, but see, that's the same thing I'm saying. That's the encouraged reactionary definition of manhood or black manhood. And that's the exact point I'm making, that because of the repressive conditions we're all suffering, every form of identity is encouraged into some variation of distortion. So manhood is no different. And what it means to be a man or a black man is under constant assault, and absent a certain political education or consciousness leads to these very reactionary. Yeah. Because again, I understand why boys and young men would, I understand a version of the struggle of of becoming a man and what it means to be a man. And I had my own version of manhood that was largely constructed from John Amos on Good Times, as a little kid. I remember thinking consciously, vividly, my father's not around. That's the father that I need. That's the kind of black man I want to be. And off I went. And what I'm saying is, over time, and I'm still working on it, I've had to investigate the radical political version of black manhood. What does it mean to be a black man in the context of a radical militant political struggle for liberation? That's the point I'm getting at. This natural tendency that I think happens to all humans of evolving into whatever identity is being imposed on us or encouraged for us, and we come into it. We want to adopt it. We want to become the version that we think that it is, and then if we're not, again, usually needing some sort of political interruptive moment that radicalizes that, it goes into any number of different directions. We get all kinds of crazy stuff out here, from the most toxic masculinity to various other forms of or depoliticized manhood. to the forms of manhood I think that we should be evolving and adopting ourselves to. And again, I agree with was it David Smith, his comrade's name, who said that George Jackson had become the consummate soldier. So when I think about what kind of man I would want to be, that would be it. But we don't get that encouraged for us. We get other forms imposed on us. So the very last thing I would want to say before we close, at least for tonight, just at least one more thing to throw in there, is that I do think we all need to be more clear about how do we know what we know? Why do we like what we like? How we're reaching whatever conclusions we're reaching, and then to challenge ourselves to find the more militant and radical form of whatever that is. Yeah,
I appreciate that, Dr. Ball. I appreciate your time. Appreciate the dialogue. I think I might wake up tomorrow and figure this out a little bit more. And I think in closing, what I like to say is, I think I can agree with you, but what I find in these frameworks is that the frameworks themselves create the ideological outlook. And because they create such an outlook, it almost hinders the the order that you were speaking to, or the order that I'm speaking to, because there's so much in these frameworks. Like a lot of the feminist frameworks, although that's like a sacred cow, a lot of the manosphere frameworks, or whatever you want to call it, the gynocentric type of frameworks. I agree with Cleo, who has his own framework as it pertains to same-gender loving people. He critiques the LGBTQ plus community and those frameworks because it becomes this more identity-centric type of ideology that actually has catechisms. And
what's funny is that the Marxists have a version of this too. They have their own argument around the reactionary form of identity politics. Yeah, and their version is in a way similar to mine, to say, look, you can have your identity, but if it's not leading you to a radical analysis of the economy, it's not helping you. If your identity, in this case, is not leading you to a radical analysis that's going to free African people, what value? There is no value to it at all. That would be my argument. So the only value to whatever identity we want is how is it going to push us to fighting for liberation, and
absolutely.
So all of us are going to be encouraged to the more liberal reactionary forms. That's why I use my own example. There's more and more every day encouraging mixed people to run off into our mixedness and disassociate ourselves, and for Black communities to disassociate us. There's a whole war on the one drop rule right now in this country. So with the goal of not turning Black communities more militantly radical, but just disassociating them more and more from elements of their own community who might have certain various mixtures. And then for those of us with those mixtures, we're being encouraged into the liberal, neoliberal form of that existence. And all of us have to reject these things. We have to identify when it's happening, identify the font and the source of that propaganda, and then recognize its impact on us, challenge our biases, and find those radical traditions in whatever community we want to claim. And there is, in other words, I'm saying there's no excuse. There's no excuse, Dr. Dahl.
Well, I'm going to say it's very complex what you're saying here, but I think I'm going to make it very simple and say that I agree with your approach. and I'm thinking, what I'm going back to is this idea of how you didn't push socialism strongly. I am saying I'm going to push race first strongly, just because I'm saying race first, and right, not race exclusive, right?
You said first, not only
race first.
And that's it. That's fine,
right?
Yeah.
So, and I would argue, I gotta say it. I argue, maintain. Gotta say those words together, right? That when you don't put that in this particular world that we find ourselves in, it makes it even more confusing, and it plays us against one another, quite like we see FBA, quite like we see the manosphere, quite like we see even LGBTQ plus. I'm not saying that they have no arguments, but when our people lose sight of the war at the racial, and I mean, even we can bring in elements of class, because even when they talk about these other identities, we don't look at class. Even it becomes class. It becomes all these other oppressed. And I get what you're saying. I agree with it. These liberal, I don't know, I'm going to say usurpations of what we think is radical. So Dr. Ball, give you the final words. Wrap it up, and we're gonna get up out of here.
First of all, I just appreciate these conversations that you host. I appreciate your audience, and I look forward to coming back. And like Fred Hampton used to say, peace only if you're willing to fight for it. Thank you very much. This has been great. And your intro is top 5 all time. I got to tell you that to your face once again. That intro, outro you got is top 5, all radio, all media, all TV of all time. And I hope people recognize that.
All right, Dr. Ball said it, y'all. He said he hope y'all recognize it. Look, I really appreciate the conversation. At least I got Dr. Ball while he a little tired, so I can hang in there a little bit. You know what I mean? So look, I'm always gonna bring him when he's tired, family. So I can look, Dr. Ball. I don't want you thinking too hard on me. No, but nonetheless, family, I'm gonna close out by saying race first.
When you claim you're Africanist, you're gonna get your mind back.
If a generalized black woman is doing this and being this, that is that is irresponsible.
No,
when you claim you're Africanist, you're gonna get your mind back.
Showing me,
Black and I'm proud. Claim you're African, black and I'm proud.
I think that if
As a
person who has a page,
what is the status of people with half FBA?
When you claim you're African, you're gonna get your mind back.
That's why I was laughing, because I am
claim you're African.
I'm not saying the framework doesn't do a thing, but
become a part of it.
We've been
forward to black men
become a part of it.
Being in the control. We
become a part of it.
Only
embrace it.
That goes to me one of the best stories I've ever heard.
Embrace it. When you claim you're African, you're gonna get your mind
that
back.
mental growth takes place. You've been misled by leadership, for instance, that thinking you can consume.
When you claim you're African, you're gonna get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim you're African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you.